one's coming.
Yes, hopefully folks will start showing up soon.
Okay. Is it so cold? I saw there is a lot of winter that side.
Yes, we just got a bunch of snow.
You are in New York or you're still in Canada?
No, I am in around the Philadelphia area, so close to
Ah,
here.
it must be cold.
Yeah, it's actually very cold today, like 7 degrees Fahrenheit, I think.
That's around negative something?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, let's wait for the other guys to join in.
Sounds good. Looks like Scott joined us.
Pardon?
Looks like Scott joined us.
Yeah, this code recording.
Hey, Chris. Nice to see you.
Hey, Scott. We'll give it a few minutes for folks to start joining.
Okay.
Hey, Ed, welcome. We're going to wait until, obviously, we need Dan to get started, so wait for him to join. I don't know if you're trying to talk. We're not hearing you, Ed.
just got a hold of Dan. He is going to join right now.
Awesome. Thank you. Hey, Dan, I saw you joined. I'll give it a minute until you can enable your audio and stuff.
Hello?
Hey, Dan, we can hear you.
Sorry. I was looking at a clock that got stuck. Off.
All right, why don't we get started? This is actually my first time chairing an interim meeting, so I don't know all the procedures, but I created some chair slides, and I believe Note Well applies to all meetings, whether in person or interim. So please note the Note Well and all the things that go along with it. We have a queue. It's a small audience, so probably don't need to be too formal, but if you can enter the queue, that would be appreciated, especially if you're want to speak while someone else is speaking, I guess. The main agenda item for this meeting is to talk about the updates that Dan did for the core spec. And I do want to at least have a little bit of a discussion on setting up a next meeting to sort of correspond with the IETF 125 timeframe. So we can have that discussion at the end. Otherwise, unless there's any other comments or questions. Oh, actually, do we have, I'm not seeing transcription. I assume this is recorded. I guess probably should ask for a note taker as well, but I was sort of hoping there would be a transcription we could use too. But maybe we don't get that for the interim meetings.
As long as it's recording, that's okay with me. If I can go back and review it, I mean, I usually try to do that anyway for our meetings, for our regular meetings, is go through and I scan through the whole thing anyway to make sure I don't miss anything. But
yeah, and we should be able to pull off that recording to transcribe it and create a summary as well. But does anyone want to volunteer to take notes? And it's mainly about any decisions we made or any things of note that we want to record. I see Ed coming off mute, but we're not hearing him. There's the chat available if you're not audible. Anyway, I think we will have a recording. I assume it is recording. Yes, this session is recorded. So
It's just a matter of finding it.
Right. So other than that, any other comments, questions before we get started? Okay, why don't we switch over? I'll bring up your slides, Daniel.
Great.
And I assume you can control them. Do I need to hand over control?
Yeah, I'm not seeing a control.
Let me...
Or maybe it's there, it's just I don't know what it looks like.
I will advance slides until I figure out how to hand it to you.
Okay. All right. Next slide. I'm Dan Petrie, by the way, for the record. So I put together a set of slides here to talk about the changes that I made into this updated version of the JSON format of VCON, and the remaining issues that need to be addressed. Half of which of these are just I need to just do something, right? It's not that it's clear what needs to be done. I just need to do something. So we'll get to that in a minute. Next slide. So changes that went into this current draft, O2 draft. These are all things that were, I think, almost, if not all, just about every one of these things was discussed at the last meeting. So there was a question of what to do when we have SIP session ID for we've got a multi-channel recording in a dialogue, and we have SIP session IDs for some of the channels, but not all of the channels. And so what do we do for a placeholder, because we need an array that corresponds to the parties, and so there were two options. One was having a JSON null value, or the other was an empty object, and the decision was to go with the empty object. And so I added text and description and to that effect in the draft. I've had a to-do in at least last several versions of what to do with signed VCONs that need to be archived for a long period of time. Typically they'll be signed. The certificate probably is only good for a couple of years or something like that. And so, what do we do to keep those VCONs that need to be archived? How do we keep them with a fresh date? And so I talked to Mike Jones, Mike Unsworth, and Richard Barnes, because they are all pretty active in the Jose space. And they had all made, one of them had made a suggestion, and the other two had thought that was a reasonable approach, which is basically you re-sign them, right? So you end up with these nested JWS objects, and you have to re-sign them actually before a signature expires, or the certificate for the signature expires. You have to take that JWS, you need to verify its contents, and then you re-sign it by encapsulating in yet another JWS object, and there's text to this effect in the latest draft, and I hope that that's clear. And actually, Mike Unsworth did a review of it. He thought that was reasonable. In fact, he added some. He made some comments to that effect in the email of there could be some more text of that there are some other features of doing this that I didn't note. So I will probably take that as an action to update that. We talked about I had added in the prior version. I'd added DTMF up and down events for capturing DTMF button press and release, and I had asked at the work group, should we generalize this into just key up and key down? Because there's no reason it has to be restricted to just DTMF characters, and there may be applications where you have a labeled button in a kiosk or something like that, or whatever, that you may want to capture that. And because there's no syntactic change, it was just a name change in terms of the of what we had there, or I put there. There was been several requests for JSON schema. I created one and added that to Appendix B. This is for informational only. It's not, it just hasn't been enough testing and eyeballs and use of that to say that's normative. And so I want to make that, or I have made that as an informative Appendix B, and because the text is in the document is the normative description of what a VCON is. There was, I had brought up issues of cases where we have an unknown party and how do we refer to them. We had a bit of a discussion. Jonathan Lennox had come up with a reasonable justification to say that it should be an empty object. If we use like a null or a -1 or something like that, we lose fidelity, because we could have potentially more than one unknown party in a VCON, and so each should have their own empty object. I added text because this is related. I had a discussion prior to that prior issue. I had a discussion with Rowan, and he and I think one or two other people have brought up the issue of anonymous parties versus an unknown party. And so I added text for how to distinguish the two, right? So there's the way now, there's a definitive way of how you add a anonymous party versus an unknown party. And then similarly with dialogues, you have sometimes, like I think the commonly occurring case that I've run into anyway is in a transfer. You may have a one you hear in transfer, you have 2 or 3 calls. In a consultative transfer case or attended transfer, or whichever you want to call it, you have 3 different calls. You have the original call, you have a consultative call, and then you have the target result of the transfer call. And with there are cases when we don't know anything about the consultative call. And so there too, we need a kind of a placeholder or a thing to refer to when we know about a call but don't know anything about it. And so again, we went with there's text in there that describes that you should use an empty dialog object. And then I also added text in the transfer dialog section on pointing this out explicitly, because it does happen in the context of transfer, at least in cases that I've seen, and for the consultative call. Oh, there was I've had a to-do in there or a question in there for, I don't know, many versions of, for attachment object, do we want a purpose or a type? Type seems like we don't have a definitive enough sets of those, and so the type, has been been used so far in VCON as something where we have a definitive semantic definition for something, and that's not really the case for an attachment. They can be various things, and so what the decision at the last workgroup meeting was that we would have a purpose parameter, and that's just open text. It could be a description, it could be a single word, whatever you want to put in there to describe the kind of the point of the attachment or purpose, if you will. Then a bunch of other stuff got removed that I went through at the work group. I had several kind of weird, obscure to-dos that were that I put in there that when thinking about them, some of them were stupid, and other ones were just we just haven't had real use cases, and so the work group agreed that it was, or the people at the work group meeting agreed that that it was reasonable to take these things out of the core definition, and we can add them later when they're needed to that is in the form of an extension to the core VCON. So VCAR was one. The group object. I mean, I think I think the group object is a very powerful and useful thing, and I think we do want to be able to do that. I just nobody that I know of is using that, and nobody. I mean, I asked this question at the work group. Nobody had volunteered to say, "Yeah, I'm using that. I need that." And so I think at this point we'll pull it out, and that becomes an extension. And so I pulled that out of the INS section mostly. I took the table for the group object parameters out, but I left the group array name in there as in there just as a placeholder in the top level parameter names, VCON parameter names. I left group in there as a and labeled it as a reserved for future use. So that's kind of it's the changes that went into this draft. Unless there's questions, I'm going to move on to open issues.
I just wanted to ask about the JSON schema. Is that normal to have that be informative or typical, or I just don't know the answer to that question, but I'm curious what the issue is with.
It's just not been tested. No one. I mean, I've gotten one bit of feedback from one person, and I don't want there to be a question. All right, is the JSON right or is the text right? I think it needs to be. It needs to be clear that the text is the normative description, and if there's a discrepancy between the two, this way it's clear that the text is right and that the JSON schema definition is not. I think that's pretty important.
Okay.
That distinction.
Okay.
It's just because of use. I mean, I've not even tested it myself, other than the fact that I know that it's valid JSON. that it can be parsed. That's all. I mean, that's the only testing that I've done on it, and I think that Rob Sliwa is the only one who has actually that I've heard of that has tested it. So I just
right. Yeah, I guess I'm just asking whether it's worth.
Yeah.
I mean, asking for more people to look at it, and if it exists in the document, obviously we want to make it as accurate as possible.
Right. Sure. I mean, if we wanted to make that normative, I would recommend we split it out into a separate document and, you know, and get the text, you know, through as an RFC and add the JSON as a separate document down the road after we've done some testing. So
Right. Yeah, maybe
I would be happy with either of those paths. You know.
Okay, I think that's a valid thing, but I also don't know what is typical in other, like maybe there's some precedent set in other IETF drafts that have JSON schema that whether it's informative or not, or whether that's treated as a normative thing or not. Maybe we can use that to inform, but maybe just a broader question on the mailing list that we could ask.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Sure. Next slide. So
Actually, Dan, I see that Ed has a question on the chat. If you want to address that quickly.
Where am I? Oh, here we go. How is it?
He says, how is ABNF typically handled normative?
Yes, ABNF is handled normative, but ABNF is the wrong analogy for the JSON here. You know, I use there's a syntax definition that's mixed in with the text, right? That's the equivalent of ABNF in this particular case. It would be like, you know, it would be like the equivalent of, if, you know, I guess the analogy with ABNF is like if we had ABNF and some other, you know, syntax description of the ABNF, so you'd have two different descriptions of the, you know, two different schema descriptions, right? That's the issue, right? We've got the existing you know, format of the for the JSON specification that's been mixed in with the text there. There's a syntax in terms of, you know, specifying types and things like that, which I you know, I copied from other, there are other JSON specifications. I forgot which one I copied that from, but there are other RFCs that use the type syntax that I used that's mixed in with the text, and so, like I said, the analogy would be as if we had ABNF and we had you know, some regular expression description of the syntax that was the same as the ABNF, and then you've got two specifications for the same you know, syntax, and so, you know, what do you do when they conflict? Okay, the open issues. First one, probably the first one that's on your mind, Chris, is I didn't change the name, and you know, like, I guess I want to plea to the work group on this one. I started thinking about what the impact of, you know, of changing the name, and it's actually, I mean, it's more complicated than just doing a search and replace. You know, I can do a search and replace in the text, but then I need to change the, you know, the repo name, I think, for the you know, the GitHub workflows for the builds for the draft. And then the bigger impact, you know, that usually, you know, takes me a couple hours to do to get everything working again when I change the name. And then the second, you know, tier of that is like all the examples need to be regenerated as a consequence, because the examples use the URL, use the name of the draft in it, in terms of they use it for referencing some of the assets that are referenced in the VCON, like the recordings and attachments and things like that. And so I would have to regenerate all the examples, and then I have to review all of that. And so I want to make a plea to the work group that we not change the name. You know, it'll be an RFC eventually, and it won't be so visible what the draft name was. So,
yeah, okay. I mean, I guess that's fine.
yeah, I mean,
We
it's
should try to
probably
fix that going forward.
Yeah, a solid day's work at least. And you know, just to put that in perspective, I probably put 2 days of effort to do this draft update. So, you know, that would have been a third of the effort. It's just, I think it seems expensive to me.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's not a showstopper issue, but
thank you. I appreciate it. I fixed a bunch of spelling mistakes in the repo. I forgot. I'm sorry, everybody. Who had to go put up with my poor spelling and typos. But I fixed that in the repo version, so they'll be corrected in the next version. But I forgot to do spell check before I submitted. I have a to-do still to fix diarization. In one of the examples, it's just did a really poor job of the diarization, and so I just hate for that to be an example that's captured in an RFC. So I need to fix that. It's just work I need to do. There's no issues in terms of what needs to be done. I just need to do it. And then I still have a to-do in there for finding the IANA registry for the header parameter names for JWE. I need to corner Mike Jones on this. I sent him an email a few times. He hasn't responded. I need to hit Mike Jones or maybe Richard Barnes or can help with that. But that it's just my to do. There's, again, no real issue that I know of yet. Anyway, that needs to be discussed. It's something I need to do. One thing, I dropped the ball and I missed this. I didn't find it till I was making these slides here. That I dropped the ball. I was supposed to add a section to the draft on for authors of VCON extensions. They're to describe a consideration section that ought to be in all drafts that propose an extension to VCON. And so Rowan May had made this suggestion, or hinted at it anyway, but and so I just need, again, it's not something that I need input from folks. I just forgot to do it. And then the rest of these things I have slides for, and so I won't go. I'm just going to run through the list, and then we'll actually go through the slides to discuss. So the first one was the list of types for analysis object. My gut feeling is the list that's there is not complete. That there probably is some other things, but I don't know what's missing. And so, but we'll get to that in a minute. Attachments, that there was an issue. Ed Guy brought this up at the work group about attachments that are not. Oh no, I'm sorry. No, I was Tom Howell had brought this up. There are attachments, which unfortunately he's not here, so I guess I'll have to chase him down about this or whatever. But he mentioned something. I forgot what we were talking about, but it was in the work group meeting. He mentioned something about attachments not contributed by a party, and that raised a red flag for me, and I spent some more time thinking about that, and so I have a slide to talk about that. This one was the one that Ed Guy brought up, was analysis specific to one or a few attachment objects, not an entire dialogue, or the not the dialogue and all its associated attachments. So we're going to talk about that. And then the separate recording issues. There's some issues. It's actually, unfortunately, Jonathan Lennox is not here as well, because this is something that I think he would have some input on. But Jonathan Lennox had brought this up, I don't know, probably a year or more ago, that it'd be nice to be able to have recordings, a separate recording per party. And I had thought about that, and I think generally that does fit in with the what we have today, and that it kind of works. And then he also mentioned that that the recordings might be clipped to talk spurts. All right, so the recording wouldn't be the entire length of the call, and so there's some issues around that I have some slides. Actually, I have several slides for, so we'll go over. And then the last is multiple parties in transfer roles. It's a kind of a question that came to mind, again, it's unfortunate maybe that Jonathan Lennox isn't or isn't here. Is that he probably would have some input on this too. But so again, I'll have slides for all these things. I'll get into the details on that. So next slide. Chris, did you figure out how I can run the slides? Because there's not this one, but there are a couple slides down. I'm going to want to flip back and forth quite a bit.
Okay. Yeah, I will figure that out. Sorry.
Okay, thanks.
I gave up
No.
on it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, man, maybe I'll just have you flip back and forth a lot then if we can't get it going.
Yes, I can do that if necessary.
All right. So the analysis object type parameter. There's kind of two issues related to this. One, I think this list is not complete. I mean, I think there are probably some more things that we ought to or recommend here, but I haven't got, this has been a to-do in the draft for, a year or two probably, and nobody's suggested anything. I did add one more here that I thought was the hey, you have control. Thank you, Chris.
Yes, I figured it out. So now you have control.
All right. So I added report as another type, and so I just feel like there ought to be more types here, but I don't know what they are, and so I don't know. I guess maybe that's okay. We can just we can make recommendations in a future draft on other types, and this is good enough. But I haven't had any kind of feedback on this issue that's been labeled and as a to-do in the draft for a year or two, and I haven't gotten, like I said, I just feel like I would like to see some more thought on this and maybe some feedback. The other thing, and I think this is okay, is I'm not registering these in IANA, whereas that other parameters that have a definitive set of values, I am registering them. I didn't register these just because, first of all, I think it's incomplete. Secondly, I'm not sure maybe we don't want to. I don't know. But so that's a kind of remaining issue. Would like to have some more discussion on this. So, anybody here have any thoughts? We've got a pretty small audience, and sorry to put a lot on you all.
Well, we can also, or we can discuss it here, but maybe it would be good to send some emails to the list to get feedback.
I think, all these open issues, I think I'll write up an email message on each of them. if I don't get sufficient input here. Okay. Attachments with no contributing party. This threw up a red flag for me. And Tom had mentioned this. I've forgotten. It was in the context of let me look at my notes here. Lawful basis, lawful basis extension. What he had mentioned is that there are attachments that are added, and there's no party label. I mean, so all attachments, and this is in the current spec. There must be a party object reference. It's not optional, right? According to the syntax spec. And what bothered me was that we had an attachment and there was no contributor, label of the contributor. And he had mentioned, I think he had mentioned it was in the context of lawful basis, the lawful basis extension. And at the time, you didn't really have time to think of it, but in thinking about this afterwards, I really feel that every attachment really should have a contributor label, right? It was like it had to have come from somewhere, and so if it's some sort of lawful basis statement on the VCON, then somebody made that decision that that's the lawful, this is the lawful state. So, I mean, I feel like that ought to be labeled by some, as contributed by someone. Even, it doesn't have to be a person. Maybe it's an entity, right? The company whose call center, who is, the call center is being operated on behalf of, or if it's the ITSP, maybe, and they're making the call of this is the lawful basis for this, for whatever, if they're making some kind of statement, someone ought to be labeled as a contributor for that. And so, right now, the way it's currently spec'd is that an attachment has to have a contributor, a party, and an attachment has to have a dialogue that is in reference in. And I think that's, I feel like that requirement is pretty solid. I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is, why don't we have a contributor for the party, or why don't we have a means of labeling that contributor? And so some thoughts that came to mind is, do we need a type on the party? Like maybe a party object always isn't a I mean, they're not always a person, right? A party object could be a person, they could be a bot, they could be an organization. And so if that's the case, then then we could create a party object for the organization that decided that this is the lawful basis for this VCON, right? Information. And so then we have a label of, all right, who put that thing there, right? And I think that's pretty important. And then this also brings up maybe we need a few more. Sorry, the typo in here. It says party type parameters. I mean, it should, for the second bullet, it should be party object parameters. For should we be able to put a company or a department or a department parameter on the party? right? So that we can name the company and name the department right, and or something like that. And so I think this is how we solve that issue. Something along this direction, as opposed to loosening the requirement that there's a contributor label to an attachment. Because I just feel like, if we have an attachment and we don't know where it came from, there's one thing if we don't know it, we don't have information about that party, and we have a way to solve that, right? We put an empty party object. But if we have a definitive answer of where this attachment came from, I think it needs to be labeled. And so I really feel like that, especially like this lawful stuff is like, if a VCON's passed along from one entity, one entity to another, you kind of want to know who labeled the lawful basis on the thing, right? And so I just, like I said, I think I have a strong conviction that an attachment has to have a contributor. Sorry, Ed, are these? I'm trying to see if these comments are relative to this here. Slide show from and to is the same. I'm sorry, which context is that? Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, I think he said that a while back when you were talking about.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I missed your comments, Ed, and so again, that's my thoughts on an attachment in needing a contributor label. So I'll bring that to the list, write this up, and try to do. So
sorry, Dan. I agree that I think attachment should have a party associated with it. I like your suggestions for adding the new party types. Just a question, is there also a place to, like for an audit trail type functionality, is there a place to record when a particular attachment or analysis was added already?
The attachment has a timestamp. And so that's the time, not when it was actually added to the VCON, but the time that the contributor provided it.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so nothing else. I'll move on to the next topic, which is analysis object data origin reference. This is I think the point that you brought up at the last workgroup meeting, Ed. So currently, an analysis object refers to 0 or more dialog objects from which it's derived. And then the dialog objects refer to the attachments that were provided in the context of that dialog. So it's a two-step link, from the analysis to an attachment. Now, I think that, so Ed had brought up, should the analysis object refer to the attachment directly? And I think that again, I'm thinking about this mostly abstractly. I don't have a concrete case or, what and why and how this happens in the real world. But abstractly, I can imagine that we have a dialogue that has, 3 attachments associated with it. And then you create an analysis that's specific to one of those or 2 of those 3 attachments. And that you might want to indicate that it, one or two of those analysis objects, as well as the recording or whatever text is in the dialogue was not used, but just the attachment data was used for the analysis. And so I think, I think that the current kind of topology or linking from analysis object to a dialogue, and then from dialogue to analysis, I think that is generally useful the way that is. And so I don't want to change that, but I could see that potentially that an analysis object, rather than referring to a dialogue, could refer directly to an analysis object or one or more, one or more. My thoughts on that is that it ought to be mutually exclusive with the reference to a dialogue object or dialogue objects, because there's no reason to do it otherwise. And so I guess the question is, and again, this is mostly abstract, just from a data topology perspective that I can think of this. I don't know, I don't have real world cases of that, of why we need this or how that might be useful. Unfortunately, we can't get Ed to talk or hear Ed. Oh, if we, Chris, do you have floor control to maybe if you add Ed's got his hand raised. He can, if you enable it, can you enable him to talk that way?
I think the issues are on his side, unfortunately.
Okay. I was hoping maybe it's just that MeetEcho wasn't letting him because he didn't have his hand raised or something.
Nope.
That's too bad.
You said something about CarPlay. I don't know.
Yeah, I saw that, and I'd love to understand more. So maybe we can talk offline about this and whatever. So this is, I guess, this would be my
DC is comment in chat.
Yeah. Okay. So you create an attachment, and then you create a description or analysis of the picture or something like that. Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks. Thanks, Ed. So folks, so should I add this then? I'll add text that an analysis object can reference either a dialogue or a list of dialogues, or an analysis object or a list of analysis objects. I think that's what I would propose. Is that people think that that's useful and I should add that? So I got a +1 from Scott.
Yeah, I think adding suggested text and then validating that on the list would be the right way to go. Or in the next meeting.
Okay, so why don't I add text for this, and then we can discuss it, and it'll still be an open issue for us to discuss at the next. I got a half of a vote from Ed. Okay. So yeah, so I'll write this up in more detail, just and then we have something to discuss in concrete. And I'll try to
just to be clear, we got 1.5 plus from the audience.
Right. of a total of what, there are 5 of us here. So okay, yeah. So I think I think enough to do something on this, and we can discuss this at the next work group meeting or interim meeting, whichever occurs first. So as it mentioned, Jonathan Lennox brought up the issue of having separate recordings for each party, and this is what I originally had specified before Jonathan made this suggestion, is that we can have either a single channel recording where everything is, for all the parties are recording in a single channel, it's all mixed together or whatever, or we could have multi-channel recordings where you have one or more parties in each, mixed into each channel. And this also includes the kind of the issue that Ed Guy brought up on the email list earlier today, is that you could have a speakerphone, right? And somebody, one of the channels could be a recording of the stream from speakerphone, and so there might be more than one party on a channel, but the dialogue parties parameter supports that today, right? And anyway, so but let me just explain a scenario, and then walk through some issues here. So let's say we have a multi-channel recording. We have a single dialogue for a call, and we've got 3 parties, 0 through 2, and the gray box here, the light gray box here, is representing the recording file, right? If you will, or the recording, and then the dark gray or black, depending on how it's coming on your screen, our spots are talk spurts, for the particular party, right? And so we've got a graph here of time. Yes, so just a comment, added comment is multi-channel recordings must have parties value that is an array of the same size as the number of channels in the recording. That's true, right? So we have here we have 3 channels and we have 3 parties. However, if for instance, if party 0, or actually, I'm sorry, channel 0, and actually, let me just pick a different channel. Let's say channel, the third channel was actually 5 different people, right? In which case, we would have an array, which it would be a 3-element array. The first element would be 0, the second element would be 1, and the third element would be 2, 3. It would be an array of value, and that would be 2, 3, 4, whatever. I just answer I think you answer your question there, Ed. But just ignoring the case where we have multiple parties in a particular channel, I just want to, the point is here is the channel issue that I wanted to focus on here for this illustration. So we've got a 3-channel recording. We've got 3 parties, just to keep it simple for this particular discussion. And you can see there are talk spurts, right? In the recording, and everybody talks at once, and there's a lot of silence, right, in the recording. And it's typically the case. Now, this is very simplified because I only have 1 talk spurt per party, but there can be any number of talk spurts per party, and then they may overlap and stuff, whatever. But a simple example here to illustrate the point that I'm going to get to in a couple slides. So we have this 3-channel recording. It's in all a single file. We have a single dialogue in our VCON, and it has these 3 channels, and it's labeled. It's got a party label of 0, 1, 2. Right. That's what the party label looks like. And then we have we had a DTMF event, which is a party event. It has a timestamp, and which key was they said we changed the name to key up and key down, and there's a key which it contains a string, which is the string representation for the DTMF key that was pressed and or released or whatever. But and then we also have another event here, in a party event. We've got partway through the call, party 2 joined in, right? They weren't in, and so we know that they weren't a party to at least some of the talk spurts from party 0 and party 1. And anyway, so again, so this graph is time going along the horizon, and then the party or channels going along the vertical axis. So again,
I think Scott's in the queue.
Oh, go ahead, Scott.
This is probably a little bit off topic, but it's a follow-up to what Ed posted from the text in the draft. Mm-hmm. So when you start a recording, I don't believe you can change the number of channels in it midstream. So if you're starting a recording with 4 channels but only have 2 actual parties in it, and you're doing that because another party may join later and it's going to be part of the same recording, is there a way to label, how would you label the other 2 channels if they're not used right away? They only get used partway through the recording.
That's a good question. They wouldn't need a party. We probably would have to label it with null or something like that. And that's probably a good clarifying text. If we have more channels than there are parties, it probably should be null. But that's a great point. We don't have any text to that effect, but that's a good point. I will follow on though, to say that you don't have to do that in terms of reserving a channel. That's not the only way to do that particular problem. The problem you're solving for is leaving room for more parties. Another thing, I mean, what we do is if the number of parties change, we stop the recording, we start a new recording and a new dialogue, right? So you start out and you have a 2-channel recording, and then somebody joins in and you stop that recording, create a new dialogue and create a 3-channel recording, and so on, as you go. So that's kind of the approach that I've been using it in terms of implementation design. But I guess there's no reason that you couldn't reserve channels for other parties, especially if you know that you're expecting them or something like that. But I think you're right. There probably does need to be some text to say that I think null is appropriate in that particular case. If you've got a channel where there's no parties currently assigned to, or if there's no one assigned to that, or no one actually speaking in that channel, assign it a null party. But I'll bring that up, or I'll try to add text to that and bring that up for discussion at the next meeting.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dan.
Yep. So anyway, so this is the multi-channel single recording file. As Jonathan Lennox brought up the idea, is like, well, very often they like to do, or in his particular invitation, they like to have a separate recording per party. And I thought, oh, that's a reasonable thing to approach. How do we do that? Well, I went through and thought about that, and basically it's supported today, right? Well, I mean, he brought this up a year or so ago, or if maybe even more, but there was no real change needed to support this. This is supported today. You'd have 3 different dialogues, 1 recording. Actually, I think we even discussed this as one of the workgroup meetings. Like, should we try to have an array of recordings in a dialogue, or is it better just to have separate dialogue? And the agreement was to have a separate dialogue for each recording. And so there's really no change to support this concept, right? We've got a recording per party. You have a dialogue per party, but each dialogue will list the parties that are in that that are a party to that. But oh, actually, that how do you list one that's not in the recording? That's okay. So there is a hole there. But all right. There's another one to add to this list here. Just listing parties that are because you want otherwise you have no association between these dialogues that they're all mixed together. So you do need to list the party that is in the recording and parties that are not in the recording, and there isn't a way to do that. So that's yet another issue to add to this list of things here. But so anyway, but everything else you can capture, no problem, right? So so we can capture, we have 3 different dialogues, we have 3 different recordings, we have start and stop, or start and duration for each of the recordings and things like that. And so the third recording there for party 2, I have it showing as being recording during the whole duration of the call. Conceptually it could it could be shorter, right? It could begin when the party actually joined. So either representation is possible, and so it's really up to the capture to decide what they want to do and or what's happening in their environment, and either way can be captured. The only real issue, with this kind of scenario, as I said, is the one that we need the way to say these parties are not in the recording, but they were part of the conversation. So that needs to be added, or rather, that's an open issue to solve. Then, Jonathan also brought up the point that sometimes they want to trim the recordings to the talk spurt, right? And so then we have recordings that look like this, right? We have 3 different recordings, and they're short, and they're just around the talk, close to the talk spurt. And we still can represent this as 3 different dialogues, but we have a number of issues that come up with this. One, the first, where do I put my DTMF key up, key down event, right? There's no dialogue recording for the time period when that DTMF had. Same thing with the party 2 join event, right? There's no, there's no dialogue that has started or is, its duration exists during that time. And so now I suppose that we don't necessarily have to have a dialogue that its duration exists, or is within the same period as the party event, but that seems a little convoluted to me. But anyway, the other thing that we lose here is just one more thing, Ed, and then I'll open up the mic here or whatever. One more thing that we lose here is we don't have a concept of when did the call begin, when did it end, and how many calls did we have, right? We don't know our calls. We've lost this concept of call segments. Was there 2 call segments? Was there 1? That kind of thing. And so that's kind of the I think that kind of covers the kind of issues. So Ed, you have a question here. Is what if you made these events dialogue type? A dialogue type. Yeah, so that's kind of what I was thinking. Is actually another dialogue that would that was one of the possible. I think there are a number of ways to solve this. I just more want to bring up the issues and make sure that we want to solve them before we dig into solutions. I think one of the possible solutions is, all right, we create another dialogue that captures the call events and things like that. And so I think there's a number of ways to solve this. I mainly wanted to hear today, or I mainly was prepared to identify these issues and make sure that we want to solve them. And I think I think there's probably several ways to solve them, and I will go off and try to come up with those, or try to better describe those. But my goal here today was to make sure to identify what we wanted to solve here, before I spend time on it. And so, yeah, and I already talked about this.
Just for the recording, Ed is responding +1 must solve.
Yeah. And so, I already talked about this. The call boundary. We lose our concept of call boundary when we trim things to the talk spurts as well. So, here's the issues that and my question is, do we want to solve these things? Do we, where do we put these party events is the issue, right? When there isn't a dialogue within occurring, is it okay if party events are not within the start and duration of the dialogue? I kind of feel it's a little ugly if they're not, but I'll bring up the question. It gives a little direction towards the solution, right? And then when did the call end to begin? Do we need to know that? And do we need to know how many calls we do have, and that kind of stuff? That's the missing information. And then the other issue that I just thought out is I was talking with Scott here, is like, how do we label parties that are in the recording versus parties that are not in the recording? I think that's so those are the issues I think that are open, or relative to this. When we start doing separate call recordings and start trimming them to talk spurts. And so, do we want to discuss these some more? I mean, don't want to get too much into solution today. Just mainly, do we want to solve all of these? Do we want to solve some of these problems? I guess kind of like the feedback that I'm trying to get from folks before I go spend time thinking about it. Like I said, I think there's many ways to solve these problems. These aren't hard to solve. We need to solve them. Or do we? So, anyone want to make comments on should I solve all of these or some of these?
Just from my vantage point, it does seem like we get into a lot of these conversations, but like you said, I think we do need to be clear about what scope we want to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Josh?
I think Chris and Daniel, it's a very great session, but unfortunately on my side, I have to leave now. So I just wanted to excuse myself to leave.
Okay. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Any comments on this problem before you leave?
The issue for separating recording per party per talk segment, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it susceptible to surveillance, something like that, if there is a hack, something like that?
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear on what.
I'm saying there is a vulnerability. There could be a vulnerability of surveillance, like in case there is a hack, they will be able to get access to the recordings. Do you get me?
I hear you saying something, the vulnerability relative to surveillance.
are you suggesting that this is that we should or shouldn't solve be able to appropriately label these things as for these issues that I brought up?
Okay, as we come up with this scenario, we have to put into mind the security aspect of the recordings of the information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess I'm struggling to figure what's the security, what's the new security issue relative to multi-channel recording the entire duration. Is that I'm struggling to see how this is any different from a security perspective.
Okay. Okay. What I'm trying to bring out is that the information, once you have all these details, you've recorded all these details, when the calls start, when they end, the voice notes and everything. If you have to design a system whereby you take into account of the security of this information. Supposing there is a call center and somebody wants to get to know the information, an external party wants to get to know the information of the that you're handling here, and there's no enough security. There could be like a vulnerability.
I do think we've talked about things like privacy and other attributes of this. I mean, it's certainly a good point to bring up. And we do want to make sure that those things are clear, but I think you're thinking about like a listener participant or something like that versus the recordings, perhaps.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Those are things that I think we want to be clear about when we look at those things, but this is more of a format for archiving conversations that have happened. So the security and privacy of who has access to these recordings and redactions and that's a broader topic that we should review and make sure that it covers all of those aspects in the document for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and I think just to add on to that is I think if there are listeners that that should not be captured in the VCON, that's that's the responsibility of the recording entity, right? The entity that's capturing this data and putting it in a VCON. It's kind of that's their responsibility. It's their policy, and it's kind of external to the VCON. Is if it's something that shouldn't be seen by anyone, then it shouldn't be put into the VCON, right? If it's something that should be seen by a selective audience, then the mechanism for that is you create you encrypt that VCON and you create a redacted version that has the information that's applicable to the broader audience, right? That's kind of our general solution for VCONs.
Oh, great. That's a very great idea as well.
Right. I think it'd be helpful to review that, in security and privacy considerations, we address all of those attributes for sure to make sure that's clear.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for joining.
Okay. Have a good morning. Yeah, it's good evening. It's coming to 10 p.m.
Thank you.
Okay.
I see Ed has put a comment on the chat as well.
Okay.
Yeah, this concept of side rooms. I think, from a capture perspective, everything is you can capture all that in a VCON. The thing that is kind of missing and identified by these questions that I've been bringing up here is there is a little bit of the topology of in some scenarios that's not obvious when you start trimming the segments shorter. And so yeah, the concept of the separate conversations and the separate calls isn't quite captured when we have these talk segments as opposed to recordings where you have kind of an implied topology. So, and I think that's the larger problem here of what isn't quite clear in these, and it becomes more obvious when we start trimming these recordings to talk segments and stuff like that. So I guess I will take this as an action. I've not heard otherwise, but I will take this as an action that we will try to solve all of these issues. I'll go take put some effort into thinking of at least one or perhaps a couple solutions on how we might do this. And I might even write up one of them and for the next draft for discussion. And we can also discuss some alternatives in the work group or the next meeting that we have.
Yeah, I suspect this is a great example. And just to make it explicit on the recording, talking about Zoom having a side room feature, how do we capture that? Like that would probably be a good scope thing where a side room might be a separate VCON versus the other ones, or scope it somehow where
you can do it either way. All right, but I don't think that it's I don't think that sidebars consultations I don't think are any different from the same problems here that I just bring up and that you get with the separate talk experts. I think it's all the same problem. I think it all can be solved in the same way, and you can choose to put that all in a single VCON or not. That's really, it's up to you. I mean, that's generally true. I mean, you think of a contact center, you often, from the customer's perspective, they're all on one call, but from a telephony perspective, a customer will often be on 3 or 4 different calls, right? They get transferred to, they talk to a bot, that's one call. They talk to an agent, that's another call. They get transferred to somebody, to the supervisor, that's another call. The agent has a sidebar conversation with the supervisor or a tier 2 expert or something like that. That's another call. And now you can choose, it's up to you. You can choose to make each one of those a separate VCON, or you can put them all in a single VCON, right? And there's certainly value of having it all in the same VCON because you capture the whole experience from the customer perspective and all the information related to that customer interaction. But there's no, you can also do, and that's kind of the point of the, the transfer objects, to be able to capture and describe the relationship between these dialogues. The transfer occurred, from the bot to a call agent, or from the call agent to the supervisor, or whatever. And so that's the advantage of putting it in a single VCON, is you capture all the information and the whole experience. But you can take a simple approach and put each one of them in a separate VCON, but then you lose this relationship between those call segments, right? But again, it's an implementation choice. You can do it either way. And I see a sidebar is no different than a consultative call, right? In the sense that it's a slightly different set of the parties are having a conversation, and so I don't think that sidebars or consultations, I think are, I actually is pretty adamant that I want to be able to include a consultation call as part of it, because that's very useful for kind of the things that we're working on in call centers. You know, and as to the sidebars, I don't think any different. And so I think that it's I think I want to take a stab at trying to solve these all these problems and consider them. So I don't think it's a big change to be able to support this stuff.
Is that, just out of curiosity, is that typical, like when you say a sidebar, like if a agent talks to their supervisor, is that also recorded when the customer is not on the line, or is that
well, we are doing that, yes, you know, for some of the solutions that we're building.
okay.
Yes, yeah, and we include it all in a single VCON, and so but that's a configuration choice. It's, you know, it's a call center configuration choice. Did they want that recorded or not?
Right.
And so, but you know, if they do record it, I think it's much more useful if you have all of those call segments in a single VCON and you've described the relationships, that's a sidebar, or that's a, you know, a consultative call, and who it's with, and it's, you can do some much richer analysis of those scenarios if you capture that all in a single VCON. And it's exactly what, you know, one of the problems that, you know, that we meaning SIP-EZ and are working on.
Yep. So that does sound important to cover these things.
Yeah. So for lack of other feedback, I'm going to assume that we want to try to solve all of these kind of issues that I brought up, and relative to the separate recordings, and I'll come up with a proposal or two, and I may choose to write up my favorite in the next draft version. His comment here, okay, concede they may be combined, but must be represented fragmented channelized form too. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's nothing that prevents you from being able to have them as separate VCONs today, right? I mean, you don't have to put these all in a single VCON, and I don't think there's anything needed to be able to record them as, you know, as separate. If I'm understanding what you're saying, Ed, I don't think there's nothing that prevents you, or there's nothing that requires that you put all these call segments in a single VCON. And if you don't put them all in the same VCON, I don't think there's anything missing to be able to do that today. All right, the last issue, multiple parties in transfer roles. I'm not saying this, but I just thought I would bring this up to the broader audience. It occurred to me that, you know, maybe, you know, I always think in, you know, in SIP terms, because that's where I'm coming from. But, you know, in a transfer case, you've got three parties. You've got a transferee, you transfer OR, and you transfer target, right? And you know, generally in SIP, those are a single party for each of those. And I just wanted to ask, because and that's what, you know, that's what we allow to be specified in a transfer dialog, is you can specify a single party for each of these. And I want to bring up the broader question: is does anybody do transfers when, you know, when there's more than one party? And you know, you know, in one of these three roles. I think the transfer or I think is always a single party. I mean, I'm not sure. I can imagine one it wouldn't be. But I can see potentially that maybe the you know, the transferee or the transfer target might be multiple parties. I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up. And Ed, can't you transfer to a queue in a single party answer? Well, I mean, a queue is not really represented in the VCON. It's, you know, you transfer to queue. That's kind of, I guess it's sometimes you can think of a queue as an entity or a party, but generally, you know, we don't record, like, there isn't any concept of a call being queued in a VCON today. There is, you know, but so you know, if you have, so if we have, you'd say you have a conversation with a bot, right? There's a call segment, and you've got two parties in that conversation, and then, you know, the bot asks you some questions and does some analysis and said, oh, okay, I'm going to put you in this call queue, right? So that first call segment ends, and then, you know, basically the VCON has no record of the call queue waiting period, other than the fact that you see that there's a recording that has a gap in it, right, between that and the next one. And so eventually, you know, an agent, you know, catches the, you know, your call, that call out of the queue. And so from a VCON perspective, just there's this time gap when nothing occurred. And so there isn't a concept of capturing the call queue event or time period. It's just you've got two dialogues. You've got the conversation with the bot, and then your conversation with the agent, right? It's interesting concept that you might capture that queue period, but I think I would push that out of scope for this document, and the capturing of the queue is a call center specific kind of feature, and an interesting one, I think. But you know, I think from this document's perspective, we just have two different calls. We have a call with the bot and a call with the agent, and we capture the recording and the parties involved with those two call segments. And that could be in a single VCON, or it can be in, you know, two separate VCONs. It's deciding, you know, it's up to the capturer to decide how they want to capture all that and show that, you know, that information. So so I guess I think I guess I'm struggling to see where there is, you know, I don't think of the queue as multiple parties, even though there are multiple parties answering calls from that queue. I would say that queue is a separate kind of entity. Is that that I've, or I mean, does that make sense to you, Ed? Again, we're not really capturing who's participating on the queue.
They had responded yes, but an agent might be on several queues.
Yeah.
So you'd want that.
Yeah, and so I think in the where there, I think there's a concept in the contact center extension to kind of capture that, because so, you know, an agent may be on multiple queues. Each of those queues, I think the agent would have a separate role, and I think there's I think there's a parameter in the contact center extension that captures that, so that, you know, that it you know, like a queue might represent a role, or a queue might represent, you know, there's a couple different things that the queue might represent. You know, the role that the agent is playing, because it could be for two different customers or two different products or whatever. And then the other thing that you know, there may be is, you know, a different campaign. You know, you might have two different queues for different call campaigns. You might have different you know, queues for different specialties in terms of, you know, the call agent's expertise and things like that as well. And you know, the content, you know, that stuff, I think is solved in the current call center extension to VCON. But I think that's the scope. If that's not in scope for this document, I think that is, those are good issues and things to question and review in the other draft. That's the contact center extensions to VCON. So, and so, but getting back to this slide, I'm not sure. I'll bring this question to the list, but I kind of am hoping the answer to this is no. We don't need to support multiple parties for the transferee or transfer target. But I just thought I would bring it up as a question. So that's all I have. Unless there's something else people want to discuss with this document.
Any other comments? Okay, yeah, I think we already discussed it would be, oh, Scott had a comment there. I don't think we need multiple parties for transferee and target.
Okay.
Yeah, I think obviously we'll make sure to point people to the recording, but maybe take some of the output of this meeting and maybe ask some of those, at least the important questions on the list would be good to do.
Yeah.
Dan.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree. It just, I think I was hopeful for a little larger audience. Thank you all who came. But I was hoping, that we'd have a few of our other participants in here that as well. But so yeah, I will. I think almost all, or at least this last half dozen set of issues, I think I'll take all to the list and just to confirm. To confirm a few things, and there are a few things that I didn't get enough feedback for me to do things with.
I have to wonder if it's appropriate to send a calendar event to IETF mailing list or not, but I suspect that is a challenge when people don't automatically get a calendar event on their calendars.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, should we send a Google Meet invite next time then? It says to folks that maybe that will get us on the calendar.
Yeah, maybe I'll look into that and ask the appropriate question, because I think that might help as well, especially if we have an upcoming interim, which we also wanted to discuss.
Oh yeah, you want to talk about having go ahead.
Yeah, do you have any thoughts there? I was just assuming it would be like either a week before or a week after when the other meeting happens, but open to feedback there as well.
Were you planning? Were you thinking that we would have a work group meeting as well?
Yeah, I mean, officially, I guess it would be an interim, but it would essentially be the replacement of the meeting that would have happened in person, rather than scheduling it in other side of the world, since we tend to seem to have mostly U.S. and European participation in this group.
Yeah, the only reason I would say maybe we should do this during the work group period is that we'll get more eyeballs.
Oh, you mean
actually schedule it for IETF 12025, and even though 90 some odd % of us are going to be online.
Okay.
I don't
I
know.
can ask that question back to the list. I thought I got, maybe I just assumed. I don't remember if I got that specific feedback or not, but let me ask that to the list and I can do that. I think there's still time to schedule an official meeting.
I guess my concern is people aren't reading the email list, but they are, intending to come to the meeting. So, but
yeah, I would just hate for them to schedule a room and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's true.
Nobody's going to show up.
Maybe we can schedule.
Let me check into what the appropriate way to handle that is. I think we could schedule an interim meeting, at least during that time period. I don't think there's anything preventing us from doing that.
Right.
I mean, it's a good point, and maybe we could make it that if somebody was physically at the meeting, it would be an appropriate time for them to join as well. And I'll ask that question to the list.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, if I don't know if Jonathan Lennox is planning on being there, but just picking him as an example, if he was going to be there, I would want to be sure that we capture a time that he can participate in.
Yeah, maybe I should try to call out individuals to try to get their specific feedback on participation. To your point.
Yeah, actually, that's probably what I should have done, is copied them directly on some of the reminders.
Or that would be another approach, that we send calendar events to folks that we know we want them to participate.
Right.
Okay. All right. Let's have that discussion on the list and try to come to consensus on that.
Okay.
Anything else to discuss?
That's all I had.
All right. Good. Yep. Let's confirm stuff on the list. I will try to create a meeting summary from the recording as well. But if anybody else took notes, please let me know. And I guess we're good for today.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye, everyone.